Okay. Now, you can actually zoom in on the video on YouTube. So they have that facility there for you to zoom in, and you can then have a look at things closer. So you can zoom in with your finger, just do that zoom in thing, and you'll be able to get closer and have a look what I'm talking about here. But so right here on this detector, you'll see that this screen wire here was attached to the underside of this housing. This housing will have some conduction. It won't be like a piece of copper. It'll have carbon either impregnated into the plastic, or from what I can see here, in fact, this might be like a fibre reinforced plastic. It's certainly what it looks like if you have a look there. It's sort of a bit crunchy when you go to pull it apart. And so it certainly has got fibres in it. Maybe they're carbon fibres, I'm not sure. But one of the things I will do is have a look at the conductivity of all these different parts as the time goes on. So once we start investigating a bit further. So I think from the perspective, from Minelab's perspective, when they've made this coil, they had to make a decision about how they were going to keep this all together and to keep it proprietary. So they need to be able to protect their design. And I'm not going to infringe on their copyright by pulling this apart. I own this coil, and it's up to me to do what I like with it. In terms of the design, the thickness of the wire and all that sort of stuff, I'm not going to expose that to you. What I'll be looking at is the functionality of the coil and how we as detectorists can use that new information to help us. So when it comes to the physical design of this, I'm going to do some experiments. I'm going to lay these out in different formats and see how it affects the signals and the strength of the signals coming back. It could be that after my investigation I find that their design here is exactly the way it should be, and it should be left alone. But me doing this means you don't have to. So you'll get the benefit of my sacrifice of pulling one of these coils apart. So, working in electronics for probably 20 years of my working life, I learned a lot, and I met people who knew a hell of a lot more than me, and even after I learnt what I have learned, my level of knowledge is quite shallow. I do a lot of investigations, however there's gaps missing in my education. I left school quite young, and so there are things for those more technically minded who will be able to explain a lot better what is going on here than I can. All I can do is use my first principles knowledge to make assumptions on how these things work, and I will greatly appreciate any listener input. So if you have had more training and you've done more with these things, especially in RF, radio frequency electronics, I'd be more than happy to get you to comment and share your knowledge as well. So, the thing with gold prospectors, when they're young and they're eager to find gold, they don't tend to share their knowledge all that much, and the older that we get, the more we want to share. And so this is what happened with a mate of ours, Bob. He's such a hell of a nice guy, and we met him just by the sale of a coil. He had a coil that he wanted to sell, and my best mate bought it and from that we met Bob, and so we've known Bob now for a number of years, and he's a true gentleman, and he's well regarded amongst the metal detecting community because of his honourable position in life. Like, he's a genuinely good man, and so it's an honour to know him, and so he has featured on a couple of my friends' videos, and Bob is a true gentleman. The network of friends he has built up over the years, good people tend to attract good people, and hopefully we can be counted in their numbers over the years, because we really appreciate the connections that we've made through Bob, and I can't say enough about him. He's a true gentleman. So here we go. We're just making our way through this. I'm being a little bit careful. The wires coming out of the coil are just right here. And I'm trying not to cut anything. It's bloody hard though, I can tell you. There's and the other thing is, because this is a potted medium, I've got to be really careful that I don't melt the stuff that's underneath it as well. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but I'm up for it. There we go. Getting that last little bit here, and you can see here where the wiring is. It's underneath this bit of plastic here. It's just, I think I need another tool. Just hang on a second. I'm going to put you on pause and I'll come back. All right, I'm back again. I found the tool that I was looking for. I wanted to be able to knock this stuff off here, and I figure the chisel's the right way to go. Here we go. We've got our little Japanese. Oh goodness me, a Japanese chisel. It's one of my better tools. I don't know if you've ever watched any videos on Japanese carpentry or Japanese craftsmanship in any type, and the level of commitment they have to their craft and the things that they do are just amazing. I really enjoy watching craftsmen at work. Like I said, I do consider myself a bit of a hack. I like having a go, and I can do most things. I have a strong interest in all things technical, and I also like watching good people do their job, working hard and making something amazing. So every now and then I'll buy a tool that sort of relates to a video that I've watched or something, and so I've ended up with this cacophony of tools and equipment. I might show you one day on a video of what I've got in the shed. I've basically covered everything in carpentry, electronics, upholstery. I make covers for metal detectors, and just in a small scale, not like Square D and those guys there do it for business, and I'm not out there to cut anyone's lunch. I just make it for friends and family and whatever. So I've got a couple of machines that allow me to do that, and as much as I enjoy it, I've probably got myself in more trouble doing things that are not in my wheelhouse than the benefit that I've got from it personally. So there we go. I'm getting all of this material out now a lot quicker with the chisel. It's allowing us to get all that potting medium out of there. So it's interesting that the medium they've chosen, it's like a rubberized material. So it's probably very good at keeping water out, and so it's really quite tough but it's flexible, hence it's easy to get out. One of the places I worked, we were making potted electronics. We were using epoxy resin to pot everything together. And so what it meant was that if something went wrong with one of our devices, we just had to replace it. There was no way of repairing it. We couldn't get into the electronics to repair it. And I think you'll find that a lot of the Minelab stuff for copyright and design protection, they've used potting solutions and paints to erase the chip numbers and the design elements, so that you know, they protect their design a bit. Oh, we've got something interesting in here. We're finding a lot of interesting things inside this detector. Got something there, a metal thing. We'll find out what that metal thing is in time. It's very interesting all the same, isn't it? Be careful that I don't damage it with the heat that I'm applying to it. But this is prospecting for knowledge here. So we're digging into things and having a look. Okay. Interesting. Looks like a little bit of electronics in there. Might be a something like a crossover network or some form of signal processing. Wow. Wasn't expecting that. I didn't expect to see any active devices apart from the coils here. This certainly looks like an active device. So definitely fibre reinforced, this material that they've got on the top here. Look at that. So have a look at that. They've got this little jigger in here. That looks like maybe it's ferrite. Maybe it's ferrite. Maybe it's used to shield that little device. We'll find out very soon. I'm just going to, instead of trying to get the black bit off, I'm going to take the plastic away from it. I think that's going to be a better way to preserve what's there. I was then looking at a few things. One of the today at JB Hi-Fi, and I was looking at the microphones because I've had trouble with getting good audio on these videos in the past, trying different types of cameras and what have you, and different audio interfaces, and just not having a great deal of luck. And so many other people are doing this and having no trouble at all. And so I thought I'd better go and have a look and see what I can find. And I found the Rode, R-O-D-E, wireless microphone system. So there's a little module that plugs into the phone, and then you can have your little lapel mounted mic like I have right now on me. And I think we're getting a reasonable audio signal. So I'm going to ask for your opinion and tell me what you think about the audio, whether it's nice and clear or not, and we'll see as time goes by. Well, that's interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. I'm just going to apply the smallest amount of heat. Just, you can see there's hot glue melt in there. So I might have to go to a different type of heat source. I've got a cordless heat gun, a Makita cordless heat gun, and maybe that's going to be our next little guy, because I don't want to mess up the wiring in here because we're going to reuse it all. Yeah, that little hot glue snot's coming off quite easily, that's good. And let's see if we can get this ferrite to come out of here without causing any damage. I'm applying a bit of force on this and it's not moving at all, so I'm going to leave it and go back to pulling off everything around it. So let's go on the outside here and get rid of some more of this plastic. It acts a bit like chewing gum. As soon as you apply a bit of heat to it, it just starts to fall to bits. Yeah, see, it just cuts, no problem at all. Once you've got a bit of heat on it, you start peeling it away. So, the last time I went out prospecting was last week, and it's been a long time for me. I've had a few health issues, and I've since gone on to a different eating regime and lost close to 37 kilos now. So I'm feeling pretty good and pretty happy with myself. The interesting thing is, it hasn't been an effort in the past when I've had to, consider my health, that because it was getting dire, all of the weight loss programs and things that I'd tried in the past, trying to get my metabolic health in order, were unsuccessful and hard to do. Like, if you go on a restricted calorie diet, you're basically hungry all the time and you're trying to keep the hunger at bay and trying to keep nourished, and it was just really difficult. And I didn't realise that the problem was not the calorie deficit that was causing, like the abundance of calories that I was eating was the problem. It was more the type of food. And I found that eating plant food, like plant matter, for me was not good, and it was causing me all sorts of issues. And there was a guy, Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's not a dietitian, he's just I think he's an ophthalmologist, an eyeball doctor. And he said in one of these shorts, if you're having trouble, you're a bit older and you're having trouble losing weight, then restrict your eating to meat, eggs, fish, vegetables and fruit, and don't consume any calories in your beverages. And so I followed that. And so for the first month, I followed that religiously. I didn't eat any processed foods. I was only eating whole foods and eating more from the first part of the list than the last part. And so I was eating a lot of meat, a lot of eggs, and my health was getting better and better. I was concerned because I have tried everything in the past to control my weight and failed dismally. And so I was checking in with the doctor and all that, making sure that my bloods were okay. I started doing, every couple of days, using a blood monitor like the diabetics use, because I was pre-diabetic. And within a very short period of time, I found out that my blood pressure was dropping, my blood sugar was normalising, and I was losing weight. I'd lost about 10 kilos in the first month, and it was fluid loss, and that's what I thought. It was only just fluid loss, but in fact my body had gone into a state of ketosis where you're burning ketones instead of glucose. So glucose, all carbohydrates are full of glucose, and so carbohydrates are converted to glucose in your system to feed your cells. And that process is what, 90% of the population does for energy. And, every diet that you go onto talks about restricting calories, increasing fibre intake and all this sort of business. And I was doing exactly that and putting weight on, and I got to a point where I was 152.7 kilos, which is a bit of a stretch for anyone really, and it certainly put me in a very bad situation. And I was suffering all different types of metabolic illnesses, one being clotting. I had edema, which is an inflammation of your lower limbs. I had swollen hands and feet, and just generally not well. And I went to my grandniece's 18th birthday last year and ended up in Epworth for 3 days because of a spontaneous bleed into my artificial knee, into the cavity of my knee, and just a rolling bunch of bad health things that were really making me think that I wasn't long for this planet really. And so I had an attack at work where it was a form of neurally mediated syncope, or what do they say, neurogenic cardiac event or something like that. And so I'm going through all this, and then I go into this diet that from a person I looked at for 5 minutes on the internet, and things changed dramatically for me. And then I found out that the days that I was eating oats or something like that, I wasn't losing weight. On average I'm losing about 200 grams a day. You think about that, 200 grams a day of body fat loss. So I've gone from 152.7 down to 116 at the moment, and it sort of bounces down to 115 and back up to 116. That's normally what goes on. And at some point it'll stabilise down in the 115s, and then it'll just continue on that path. So, I'm thrilled. I'm really very happy and very healthy. I'm riding my bike. Although exercise is not part of the regime, that's certainly not part of the regime. They said that if you're too fat and you exercise, you can do damage to your joints. And so take it easy, go for gentle walks, and just take it easy and let the body do its thing. And as a result of that, now I can easily walk up and down the stairs at work, don't get puffed out. I can go for walks for kilometres and have no trouble whatsoever. If I had started that sort of behaviour when I was grossly overweight, I would have been in all sorts of trouble. I would have ended up with a lot of joint problems because of the inflammation as well, I guess. Things like blood clots. My God, one stage I had 40 blood clots in my lungs. And you think, what can I do? Crazy. Anyway, that's that. That's why I haven't been around on this YouTube thing, and I haven't been out in the gold fields, because I've been challenged pretty hard with my health concerns, and so now those health concerns are diminishing. I'm feeling a lot better. So here I am. So now let's have a look what we've got going on in here. So you can see all the wires are actually going into this little spot here, and it could be part of the termination of the cables. You can actually see, I'll get my little pointer here. So this part here is a potted component, like some sort of goo that they've poured in, and that's where the cable comes in from the other side. So if we look in here, that's the location of the cable here, And we look directly on the other side of it. You can see it comes into here, and then these cables here, 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 and here are all coming from that cable. So if we have a look now at the cable itself at the other end, you can see we have a 7-pin connector. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 big pins and 3 little pins. One of these pins will be the earth, most likely the center one here. I'm assuming. We'll get a meter in a minute and check it. And that will be coming onto the shield that is around the outside of this cable here. And so if we look through here, just make that a little bit wet, you can see it. You can see that red part there. Hang on. That red part there, that's the outside shield. You can see there's a little electronic board inside there. That electronic board is for the coding of this to make it unique for Minelab metal detectors GPZ 7000. So without this plug, you can put any sort of coil you like on this and it won't work. That's why they cut this plug off and use it for their X coils. So there must be something in here that can't be reproduced too easily, or form some part of the copyright. So, but you can see here that's where it's coming through. We'll very gently soften that goo in there. It's hot glue, so it's the most melty stuff here. It'll melt at the lowest temperature, so we should be able to get it off without damaging anything else. There she comes. There's some more hot glue snot there. There it goes. Now this type of reverse engineering, when I was working in the steel mill, we had old technology. So the steel mill itself came from Chicago. It was a defunct steel mill, a rolling mill, and the company that I was working for sent a bloke over there. His name was Jack. Very, very clever man. It was just a sparky. He went over there, he packed up that steel mill, put it in shipping containers and on ships and whatever, and brought it back to Australia and set it up in Laverton, and they started producing steel, which is amazing in itself. The steel mill melt shop where they were recycling scrap metal, scrap steel, the original furnace came from the Apollo program over in the US. So it was sitting somewhere in a paddock, and Jack found this thing and brought it over and got it running here in Australia with the help of many other people, obviously, but he was really the catalyst to get all this thing operational. As a result, Jack was looked after very well by the company over the years, and he was well deserved. It was well deserved. He was a really top guy, but very, very suspicious and very much not wanting anyone else to know anything about the stuff. And so he would keep all the drawings tucked away and wouldn't let anyone see the original drawings for this equipment. And so of course I didn't want to have anything, I didn't want to upset the apple cart too much. However, I just had to work out how these things worked, and so I reverse engineered quite a lot of stuff and made circuit diagrams and what have you of different parts that were breaking down on a regular basis to find out what the root cause of the problem was. And so I did that, and I'm talking about not for 5 minutes. I was doing that for over a year, And at one stage, Jack took time off, and a new engineer who started there, who was my boss, was in Jack's office, and I noticed all these folders underneath the bench full of dust and everything else, and I said, what do you think they might be? And he says, oh, that's Jack's stuff, we're not meant to touch it. And I did touch it. So I found out he had all of the circuit diagrams for all of the boards. And so in that time that I worked in the electronics department, my boss said that I was responsible for saving the company around about $3 million per annum in lost production because of the changes that I made, and which I was quite chuffed in the fact that he actually wrote that in my my reference letter in detail. He told whoever wanted to read it what I had done to improve the way that the system ran. And so I'm very, I had a great deal of fun in that that time, and a lot of it was in this reverse engineering and development of stuff. And I was asked one time about Nyquist's theorem, if I had any idea what it was, because I'd actually stumbled across Nyquist's, the fundamentals of what I was doing complied with Nyquist's theorem of absolute stability in a control system, and so I didn't know, and he thought that was silly that I didn't know, so he sent me to school on the company ticket, so the company paid for me to go to university and learn higher level mathematics and what have you, so that I could understand what I was physically doing, so that I may apply that to other things. And so it was a very interesting time for me. Having gaps in your knowledge is hard, because it means you've got to make a lot of stuff work without really knowing, the effects of it and, why it works. And so this guy, Paul Wadeson, a hell of a nice man, was my mentor and someone I looked up to back then and still do. So he was an incredibly clever man. He ended up being the drive specialist for BHP, worked on the Olympic Dam project and many other things, and just was an all-round good human being, and he took me under his wing and taught me so many things that allowed me to flourish in that industry. So while I'm prattling on here, I'm just slowly working all of this hot glue out of the way so I can safely get everything unpacked so we can see what's going on in here. There we go. That's that piece. That little guy's still stuck in there nice and solid. Very interesting. It's going to be a while before I get that one out, I reckon. We've got to go through and take everything away from it so that we can get into it without damaging it. So I think we're going to be going over the other side and working in from the back. So okay, so this video now, we're about 30 minutes in. I'm going to have to split this up into a couple of parts. So I'm no good at editing these videos, so I'm going to get my mate to give me a hand. I will put links to my mate's videos. He's a fellow who has become my closest confidant and friend. We moved away from Melbourne and moved down into a country town, and we love it down here. and I was down here retired 7 years or so, and managed to end up getting a job at the local TAFE teaching electric technology. So I teach down here, and I'm loving the interaction that I have with the teachers and the children there, or the kids. They're not really children, they're young adults, and we're learning together how to get on and how to get these young people into meaningful employment. So it's very good. But in the gold prospecting stuff, my friend Maury and I, when I was living in Melbourne, we would go out once a week, and we shared the driving and did all that sort of stuff and had a wonderful time. And then when I moved down to Warrnambool, the time that it takes to get over to the gold fields, and with my previous health situation, I found it very difficult. Driving for long periods of time would cause clotting, and so I was on anti-clot medication and all this sort of stuff, and I was getting cramps and God knows what else, and so I stopped going because of my health. So I've been looking at local places to find gold, to see, what's the closest place that I can go to find gold. And just last week I went out around Scarborough and those areas, which is the closest to Warrnambool, and managed to find some gold. The first time in about a year. And so that sort of motivated me now to get back into it. And, all is not lost. These new fancy detectors, the 6000 and the 8000 that are out from Minelab, yes, they're weapons, and people are doing well, but I find that the amount of gold is found is proportional to the amount of effort you put into it, not necessarily the machine you use. And $15,000 for a metal detector is a lot of money. That's what people are paying, and because the 8000's a beast of a thing like the 7000 is, people are saying, well, we need a lighter metal detector to go along with it to find all the little gold. And so people are going out and buying a 6000 detector, which is what, $8,000-9,000, and then buying one of the other ones, and that starts to get a bit ridiculous. I think you end up spending a hell of a lot of money, and you've got to find a fair bit of gold to get that money back. So I go out with the old timers. The guy we did our initial course with about 6 years ago has just turned 87 or 88, I think. Hell of a nice fella. He took us out on a place and showed us a new area for gold, and he is in his late 80s and he's finding gold, and he's happy to share his knowledge. So, we're in a bloody good community, I think, here in Australia. And I think I mentioned earlier about people's thirst for knowledge, but also sharing knowledge with others of similar interest is attractive to the older guys more than it is the younger guys, because they've had a lot of fun and they want other people to enjoy that as well, instead of just keeping it to themselves. And so these old guys are doing us a huge favour when they're sharing their knowledge. And if you get the opportunity to spend some time with some old timers, like the jamborees that go on around the place, they have the Lankuri Bash, and they have one up in Wedderburn, I think, once a year as well. And you get to meet these old timers, and I tell you, some of the nicest times I've had out in the bush there are with these old gentlemen who share their time and their knowledge. It's greatly appreciated, I can tell you. So here we go. Just imagine doing this with a coil that's worth, you know, what were they, nearly $1,500 or something when they first came out, and here I am tearing it apart. It's a bit, I don't know if it's disrespectful, but I could just imagine the designer sitting there, what the hell's he doing? It's quite a thing to be pulling apart a piece of tech like this, not knowing whether or not there'll be any real benefit, you know, whether or not I'll manage to find out the secret and how to better improve the detector. So I think the technology in the box is second to none. You know, the Minelab stuff is definitely market leading, no doubt about it. There are some units like the Nocta and a few others that are coming out. The Algo Force, what a hell of a good machine that is. My friend's got one of those and swears by it, loves it. I'm regularly finding sub-grammars with my 7000 with the 12-inch coil, and my mate's finding sub-grammars with the 17 by 13 on a regular basis because he's spent more time with that detector, so he gets the nuances, all the little changes in signals, and he can say, well, okay, that's worth digging. But he digs nearly everything anyway, so there's good reason why he's doing well. All right, this little thing, it's nearly free. It's certainly not far off. Just had to recharge the torch. It's running hot. But we'll get down to the last little bit here, and then I'll leave you. I better go and have some tea, and then I can get back into this in the next video. This one has gone a bit long, and I'm going to split it up into some shorter ones, do a bit of editing with Morris's help, and we'll see how we go with it. But very, very interesting process pulling this apart, and you know, one false move and it's all over. And I'm aware of that, and I'm just making sure that I'm doing this with a level of delicacy, and that's why I'm finding talking to you like while I'm doing this is actually helping me to sort of focus a bit and not get distracted too much from my own thoughts. There we go. That's the last little bit in there, I reckon. This stuff melts like a champion, doesn't it? Just allows you to get in there. Look at that. So we've got that little module now. Oh, there she goes. There she goes. Let's turn that over now. Have a look at what we've got. Wow, look at this little thing. Okay. There we go. Ah, we've got it out. Look at that. Wow. So this little device here looks like it's a complete a complete shielded board. So it's got bonded ferrite, and it's got a board inside. We've got the cables going from the detector through this little board and then out to the coils. So there we go, look at that. So there is some voodoo going on in here. So once I get this thing apart very, very, very gently, I don't want to wreck it, I'll have a look at what is in this little electronics board, how it's connected, and to give us a better picture of what's going on here. It could be cyanocrylate, it could be just super glued together. So let's see if that will move at all. Nope, it's not moving. All right, this is going to need some more investigation. I might keep going with the other parts. There's another little bit of magic in here. That's a ferrite bead that's going around these two cables here that are going onto the big coil on the top. So we'll find out more about this next episode. So thanks for sticking about, and if I'm waffling on too much, just let me know. I've been told I could talk under wet cement, and so I think that if that part is a little bit annoying, just let me know and I'll tone it down a bit. However, I think this process of pulling this apart is better than a jigsaw puzzle or doing Wordle or Sudoku or any of those things. This is my therapy. I love it. All right, guys, I'll leave you to it, and I'll see you on the next one.